Each day, men and women have a variety of responsibilities to maintain. Establishing yourself professionally and attaining a personal life of fulfillment are usually at odds in our society. These clashes can lead to an unfulfilled existence. Have you had enough of this constant discontentment? It's time to change your perspective at Live Life Wealthier. Listen in on conversations that reveal the keys to living a full life. Learn how to achieve true wealth in the 4 realms of L.I.F.E: love, inspiration, family, and enterprise. This is your guide to breaking free from a rut and maintaining a healthy balance between your personal and professional lives. Marta Skeek-Herrick is your host.
All right, everyone, welcome to Live Life Wealthier. Our viewers, our listeners, you are in for a treat today. We have the incredible Peter Swain with us. And when you hear his background and his story and everything that he is contributing to this world, it's going to blow your socks off. And that's the G-rated version. So I would love to introduce Peter. Peter, welcome, welcome, welcome. I can't wait to hear more about your story and share just a bunch of amazingness about you.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be with you and pleasure to be with the viewers and the listeners and the streamers and whatever else and whoever else we're talking to.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So what's really interesting, and I think this is going to be such a treat for you, in our environment right now, AI is becoming an incredible tool for everyone to utilize. And there's 2 schools of thought on this. Before I get there, because this is going to be so important for our viewers, I would love for you to share with us a little bit about your journey of how you became the AI guru and what happened and why is this so relevant and so important, Peter?
Yeah. So, let's do the speed dating intro. I started coding when I was 6. Sold my first application at 12, was one of the development team for the UK version of Yelp in the mid-90s. We had the 30-second listing on Yahoo. Then I went and worked for people like IBM, Amdahl, Ford, Williams, Sony, Universal, and in my digital marketing career, ended up completing around 1,400 projects. Ran the first mobile agency in Europe, a whole bunch of really cool stuff, and worked with a whole bunch of really cool people. But throughout that, my uncanny superpower really was the ability to kind of predict the future when it comes to technology and understanding of what is happening now, but really what it's going to mean. And everything kind of pivoted for me in 2018 because I had my first child, and I realized in a fairly visceral way that I wasn't paying any attention to the world that I was creating. I actually had this kind of vision, hallucination, dream of my daughter in the future asking me how I earned my money. And I realized that the answers I'd have to give her really didn't sit very well with me, because how I show up as a father is kind of the most important thing for me. So you tell your kids, be kind, be caring, be compassionate, leave every room better than it's in. If somebody's sad, give them a hug, all of that stuff. How do you then say, yeah, I work for fast food chains, helping them sell cancerous cheese, which is kind of where I was at. So I quit. I quit all of my marketing work and spent a couple of years really going into who I am and how I live and what I do and where I do it and who I do it for, and establishing like a framework for myself of like, well, what do I want to be? Because one of the things that for the parents out there, you have this realization at some point that you're going to be a parent for life. All of us, actually, one of our wishes is that our kids bury us, not the other way around, which means that every day that I walk this world, I'm going to be a parent, whether they're in my house or not, whether they're under my roof, doesn't change the fact I'm going to be a parent. It might sound really stupid, but until I had kids, I didn't realize that. My frame was, you're a parent for 18 years or 21 years, but well, no. And if you've got this ability to kind of understand what technology is going to do and how it's going to transform society, well, that means it's going to transform the society that your children grow up in some ways more profoundly than it will change your reality. So how can you then not be part of that conversation? So fast forwarding through that dark tea time of the soul, a couple of years ago, as AI became of age, what I call when it became humanized. So, it's been around for 20, 30 years, but when it became humanized last February, I realized that people were making the same mistakes that they'd made when I first discovered mobile, and the same mistakes that when I first discovered web. And with the speed of transformation of this being more than almost anything we've ever seen in the entire history of humanity, it really isn't something you can ignore. So now let's come back to the question of there are two schools. Is it good or is it bad? The answer is they're both right and they're both wrong. Technology is nothing more than a mirror for the human condition. Okay, the same technology that built the atom bomb built an X-ray machine. The same technology that allows the rapid progression of antiviral medication is the same technology that allows you to issue biological weapons. The same technology that turns on your light switches powers electric chairs to execute people. And I'm not making any judgments on any of those things. You're like, no, I'm antiviral. Great. That's up to you. I'm just saying technology expands the ability for humans to do human. It makes good people better and it makes bad people worse. And if you want the most obvious example of this, it's alcohol. We all know great drunks. People are like, they are so much fun when they're drunk. They have a laugh. They want to dance. They want to party. And we all know some really bad drunks that we're like, don't give that person a single drink because they're going to get angry. They're going to get mean. They're going to get terrible. Technology just accelerates who we are. So you can't actually say, is it good or is it bad? Because it isn't anything. It'd be like saying, is the weather happy? The weather can't be happy. It's not a word that applies to it. So the more accurate question is, how will we use this in order to make our lives better and wealthier and impact the other people around us in similar ways, versus how do we avoid using it for the negatives? And that is then a much more interesting question, a much more sticky question, a much harder question, because then we start talking about regulation and all sorts of other competing forces. But the right question for an individual, somebody watching or listening to this, is what do I want to accelerate in my world in order to make my world wealthier? That's the question people should be asking.
I love that, Peter. Thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. And, in Live Life Wealthier, the purpose is to live life wealthier. Love, inspiration, family, enterprise. The enterprise and the money-making piece is at the end of the equation. Money doesn't make us happy, but we need money to make sure that we're happy. We need to accelerate and accentuate and uplift our lives from all different angles to be able to do that. And AI is one of those pieces. So if there were any questions about if this conversation is relevant to our listeners, I hope Peter has reeled you in, because he is really an inspiration. And what really got me, I got goosebumps all over, you said technology is a mirror of the human condition. I mean, if that's not reflective of who we are and who we want to be, I mean, it almost seems like it's a clean canvas where we can almost recreate ourselves in what we're doing. So, Peter, why is the time now? Like, why do we have to do this now?
So the thing that I'll give you an example. The other day, I got a big tattoo done for my birthday last week, and I was saying to the tattoo artist at the time, I'm like, this is coming for everybody, and because obviously there's the thing everybody wants to talk about, which is cool because I want to talk about it as well. And it's like, yeah, but how's it going? It's not going to affect me. Like, you can't tattoo with an AI or a robot. I'm like, you probably could. And she's like, yeah, but it's also a very therapeutic thing. A lot of people are solving a trauma through the process of getting a tattoo. It's a conversation. It's about the artist. I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm like, but people still have to be able to afford to pay you. And she's like, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Okay. About 20 minutes later, I swear on my life, we're sitting in the back, and somebody came into the reception and said, I need to cancel my appointment for next week to the receptionist. And the receptionist said, I'm really sorry. Is everything okay? And the guy said, yeah, I just lost my effing job. I just don't have any money. He said, oh, what did you do? He said, I was a customer service agent and they've put AI in place and I don't have a job anymore. And my tattoo artist literally stopped and went, shit. I'm like, yeah. The problem we have is that traditionally speaking, this, you'll do a little mini history lesson for a second. Traditionally speaking, the need of your company, my company, and everybody watching this, and the needs of the capitalistic system have been the same, which is you do better, you grow your business, you need to hire more people in order to support that business. And therefore, more people are currently now working and being employed. So the needs of you as an entity and capitalism as a system were completely aligned with one another. The problem now is that with AI, you can choose, and I believe incorrectly, but you can choose to replace humans with AI processes and AI people. So, for example, if you used to employ a copywriter to write blog articles for search engine optimization, for marketing, you could now do that yourself using AI. But that means that the copywriter is no longer employed. So the needs now of an individual company are to reduce its headcount in order to increase its enterprise value, which works for company A. But if company A and B and C and D and so on and so forth all do the same thing, then capitalism, the system, doesn't have enough people in it earning enough money to be able to afford to pay for the things that you want to pay for. So you can't be disconnected from this. You physically can't. It's like you can say you believed in COVID or you didn't believe in COVID, but you were still impacted by the outcome of the thing. You can't deny you were impacted. You can deny whether it existed or not. Again, let's not have that conversation. But you can't deny that your business was impacted by it. Some people's business grew because they got stimulus checks and da-da-da. Some people's businesses shrunk. But almost everybody was impacted in some way or another. So when the World Bank say that we're looking at 40% job displacement in the next 3 years, of which half of that amount they do not expect to be rehoused in another job, we're talking about potentially 20% unemployment being the new normal that we have to deal with. So how do you as a company deal with a 20% reduction in spending power in a country happening like that? The answer is you have to find the efficiencies in your business in order to not just stay ahead, but to accelerate. Because one of the misnomers that we all have, and COVID actually reinforced this in some ways, a great friend of mine once said, there are only two things that hover in life: helicopters and hummingbirds, and humans aren't either. You are, as a business, either growing or shrinking. You are not standing still. Your relationship with your intimate partner is either getting better or worse. It is not standing still. Even if you say, I earned 1.6 million last year and I'm earning 1.6 million this year, well, straight away, inflation took 6% of that. And the market growth that you should have had of 10% means you're about 16% off. And if you had a 20% profit margin, you're probably pretty happy, which means your profit margin is now 4. So even if you were earning 1.6 and then 1.6, you are actually losing 16% on the previous year. So when you have a technology like AI, which simplest way to put it is it makes everything 20% more efficient. If you're not accessing that at every single level of the company, from boardroom to the janitor, if you're not going, how do we use AI to do this more efficiently and more effectively, which is why this is quite unique. Most technologies offer one of the two, more efficient or more effective. This thing says more efficient and more effective. So if you're not taking that and looking at every aspect of your company and going, well, how do we do this and where do we put it? You are going to get left behind of the other person that's competing with you that did do that. Well, that was probably quite a long answer, but hopefully it was a good one.
No, I love that. And I want to accentuate this for our listeners. in that whether you think this is going somewhere or it's not going somewhere, it's going somewhere. It's going to make an impact in your business, and having your head down in the sand is not going to solve the issues. So instead of resisting this change, Peter is here to share how you can embrace it, some of the benefits that it's going to bring you. And at the end of the day, as business owners and entrepreneurs, we are the change agents. We embrace change. And the only constant is change. And this is one of those things that we either have to get on the bus or we're not going to survive this market moving forward.
Well, it's not even, for me, it's not even that we embrace change, Marta. It's that we actually survive on change. If you actually think about the job of any small business, if there is no change, there is no opportunity.
You got
If
it.
there's no change, there is no opportunity. If everything stays as is, you go and pitch your service. You're like, I clean roofs. I'm a roofer. And you knock on the door and the guy goes, no, I've got a company. I'm going to stick with them. Thanks very much. And then you knock on the next door and the guy goes, no, I've never had my roof done by somebody, so I'm not going to change now. And then you knock on the next door and the guy goes, nah, I tried this 3 years ago. I'm not going to try it again. You're out of business. That you survive and therefore thrive based on change. So change and opportunity are synonymous. They're the same thing. And what's happening right now is the largest systemic shift and change that we will ever see in our lifetime, ever, which means it's the largest opportunity for growth. I'll give you an example from a company I'm on the board of. We're a lending company in Latin America, right? People apply, we lend them money.
Okay.
Very easy business if you're good at it. Very terrible business if you're bad at it, but that's a different story. Our qualified inquiry to loan ratio, so how many people go through the whole process, the 30 minutes, fill in all the things, give us all the documentation, and get an offer from us, versus how many people accept that offer, is 2.6%. So we did a project with Google and said, we want you to just work on this. Don't work on the rest of the business. Forget everything else. We just need you to focus on this. They're like, okay. So they took over the emails, the text, the WhatsApps, the outreach. Hey, you've had an offer, da 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 da. And the AI sat and went, well, should I send it 4 hours a day? Should I send it 8 hours? Should I send 2 an hour? Should I send 3 an hour? And just started playing with these numbers at scale until it found the right answer. And the right answer for you and the right answer for me is different. So it's like, okay, with this person, I'll do a WhatsApp. This person, I'll do a text. We are forecasting, we're not fully finished yet. We're forecasting that will be a 6% instead of a 2.6. That is a 2.5x growth in profit from one application of one thing.
Amazing.
One application of one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That money then goes into advertising to bring in new customers. So we are now eating market share that we otherwise couldn't have got, because we are now so much more efficient with how we treat every dollar. We can outspend our competition. We can outbid our competition. We can undercut the rates that we offer to people by a substantial amount. So we are now becoming more and more efficient and more effective at a quicker exponential curve than them. So the question, if you think through the scenario, if you're listening to this, how do you then keep up? Because if we were both spending 50K a month on advertising, we can now spend 200K on advertising. Because we can spend not only the extra money that we've earned, but also the extra money we know we're going to earn because of how more efficient we are as a company. So we were competing 50 and 50. I'm now doing 200 to your 50. Guess what's going to happen when I put Google on the next project? I'm going to go to 400 to your 50. Then I'm going to go to 800 to your 50, at which point I might offer to buy you out for 20 cents on the dollar, if I'm feeling generous. That's how quickly this happens and shifts and changes. And I'll give you another crazy example. Just try and explain this because our problem, Marta, is it's like trying to explain electricity to a caveman. If we go in and say electricity can do everything, and people go, well, I get it, But what? And you go, everything. And they go, yeah, everything. What everything? You're like, everything, everything. Like, it just makes everything better. And people, until they find their first win, their first anchor point, which I'm going to give some advice on how to get that in a second. Until you find that first thing, it's very hard to actually understand. I think most people now have gone, okay, I get it. I understand it. I've heard enough about it. But what the hell do I do with it is a very different question. So this is the way I explain it to people. Imagine, and Marta, I'm sure you love Monopoly as the game.
Yes.
You buy the electricity company, right? You buy everything. We all agree the electricity company is useless. It's never going to make you more back than you pay for it. But the value of having it, when you want to swap a blue for a green, it's worth having. There is no good reason to hold money in the game of Monopoly. Okay, so now what I want you to imagine is if I change when you pass go, if I told you went 180 or 220, not 200, I'm assuming you would still buy the electricity company. It wouldn't change the way you play the game.
Correct.
How you win at Monopoly, whether you got 180 or 220, would stay the same. Now imagine this scenario. Imagine, and this is a bit advanced math, so I hope everyone keeps up with this. Imagine that we changed one rule in the game of Monopoly, just one. Everything else stays the same. But the new rule is that the bank will 10x your money every time you pass go. So if you've got $1,000 in the bank, they will make it 10,000. And if you go around again, the bank will make it 100,000. And if you go around it again, the bank will make it 1 million. P.S. This is how
that math. I like that.
Well, yeah, that's why everyone wants to be Jamie Dimon at Citibank, right? Because that's how it works, right? But for the rest of us, unfortunately, it doesn't. So that means that the opportunity cost now of buying the electricity company for 150 would be 1,500 after you've gone around once, 15,000 after you've gone around twice, and 150,000 after you've gone around 3 times. I know the answer. You would then not buy the electricity company. You would start getting very, very selective with how you spent your money in the game of Monopoly if the bank was going to 10x your money every time, because now the value of the cash is so great that the value of the property becomes diminished. And yet all we've done is changed one rule. That's all we've done. It's still the same color squares. It's still the same dice. It's still the same pass go. It's still the same free parking. Everything's the same. We just changed one thing. And suddenly the entire game got changed. That's what AI is. If you now have the ability to go, we can acquire a customer for 20% less. We can do the work 20% quicker. We can get 20% more referrals and more testimonials, etc., etc., etc. Those 20% compound up very, very quickly. And previously, this technology, any technology, would have been millions of dollars of capital investment. I would recommend to everybody right now, buy a factory that can produce batteries for electric cars. If you've got $100 million sitting in the bank, if you can produce lithium batteries, you're going to do well. The problem with that statement, most of us do not have $100 million sitting in the bank in order to go and buy the gigafactory to produce the batteries. If you look throughout all of history, the printing press, the spinning jenny, the move to electric vehicles, the move to silicon-based chips, all of these required such huge amounts of capital investment that it was beyond the reach of most people in order to do that. In order to access the power of AI, you need a laptop or a tablet and a Wi-Fi subscription in a coffee shop. It's a $20 investment for you to be able to say, I want to compete with XYZ. And I want to consume all the knowledge of all of those experts without actually having to pay those experts. You can literally, with a $20 subscription, launch a business that could never, ever have happened in the past. So that would be what I would say to people is imagine it's not that the rule has changed. It's that the rule has changed in such a fundamental way that the game itself is now a different game.
It's very true. And, I'll use our firm as an example. And you and I have these candid conversations all the time. It's like, okay, now that there's AI, who needs an accountant or a bookkeeper or a tax preparer or a CPA? And it's really interesting because you can argue both ways. From what I've shared with you in the past, it's actually accelerated and created more efficiencies in our business because now our bookkeepers and accountants can count on AI to be able to put together data. And now they've just elevated themselves. And not only from the employee perspective, the customers, our clients, they actually come to us now. It's more of an educated conversation. I'm not teaching them from the ground up. They already have a really strong baseline. Now, they have the words for tax strategy, for example, like different strategies like the Augusta strategy. And they know that it exists. They know they want to use it. They know it's a win for them. But there's still so many blanks in between where the conversation now becomes a peer-to-peer conversation and it enhances value significantly.
I think the reason that, at least in the next couple of years, let's take professions like CPAs, are not at risk, because what AI, and it's taken tens of thousands of conversations and 20 hours a day of thinking about this for 2 years to really finesse my thoughts on it. And what I've come to the conclusion of is, one of the things that AI is great at and terrible at is that it's agreeable. So, and anyone can try this. Open ChatGPT and say, I'm going to New York this weekend, and I'm going to wear a backpack that is a cage, and I'm going to put 10 live chickens in it. And every time one of the chickens make a noise, I'm going to do a chicken dance. Give me 3 other things I could do in order to accentuate this experience. And ChatGPT will answer the question. Right? And I've made that as ludicrous as possible, because what should happen, if I said that to you, Marta, you'd go, what are you doing?
Insane?
Are you insane? Right? But AI is going to go, that's a great idea. Here are 3 ways you can make that better. Right? AI is agreeable. And it's so intoxicatingly good that it's very often quite hard to see that what it's doing is actually agreeing with the inherent bias that you've added into the equation. Because most of the time when we speak to other humans, we ask leading questions. Like you said, I'd love to interview on the podcast. What time would work for you?
Mm-hmm.
You never actually said, do you want to do it?
True.
Right?
It was an assumptive close, Peter.
Absolutely, which is great. I love it. But it is a leading question, right? And that's okay, because I'm also a human. I have an amygdala. I have a reticular activated system. I have a pre and post frontal cortex. So I can also then evaluate all the things you're asking. It's called the frame conundrum. I can correctly frame everything you're saying from that one sentence. AI can't do that. So here's what you have to do as a human in order for AI to really work for you. If you imagine it's a container and the AI gets to play inside the container, you get to set 2 things. You have 2 jobs, and only 2. Your first job is to provide the creativity. Right? Humans are great at creativity. We are great at going, she's wearing a yellow jacket, your name is Marta, therefore stapler is the right word to say next. Right? Humans are great at that. We can take completely disparate data points and come up with something new. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but we can come up with something new. So the first job of the human is to provide the creativity. The second job for the human is to provide the context, because the AI is very, very bad at understanding context. Okay. For example, again, if you said, I want to do this tax strategy, how do I do it? Marta, I know that you and your team would go, well, that's not going to work for you. That's a terrible idea. Contextually, this strategy is a great strategy, but contextually, it's terrible for you.
You got it.
So if you imagine that the human provides the creativity and the context and the AI plays in the middle, well, who do you want to set the creativity and the context for your tax strategy? You or a CPA? The answer is the CPA. I definitely don't want me in charge of those decisions, because what's going to happen is I'm going to talk to the AI, and the AI is going to reflect my bias back at me telling me that I'm great and brilliant and amazing and this is the best idea ever because it's been told to agree with me. So, and side note, the reason it did that was because no one would have adopted it if it actually did what it really should do, which is say, you suck, right? That's actually what we want. What we actually want from our truest, dearest friends is to say, hey, I'm going to go on American Idol. You really want your good friends to go, you can't sing, right? Just saying. Like, I just want to just make sure you are aware that you are terrible. Like, that's what a good friend does. A good friend steps in front of it for you.
You have something stuck in between your teeth and you just shouldn't go out because your mascara is smeared. Yes.
That's what a good friend does, right? AI is never going to do that. It's a false friend. So you have to instruct it correctly. So on legal issues, financial issues, any issues, a marketing issue, the same thing. If you're the person instructing it, you're going to get a reflection back of your own bias and your own abilities. You want to work with people that are using AI. I wouldn't use a CPA, an attorney that didn't have an effective AI strategy because I don't want to pay $600 an hour for 6 hours, but I only need to pay $600 for 3 hours. So it's on you to say, I only want to work with people that use this, but it's not on you to then adopt all of their skill sets and their learning. Mm-hmm. That would be how I would differentiate. I did want to make sure before we get to the cutoff that I give people that how to find your anchoring moment. And it's really simple. And it's just 20 minutes a day. Like everything we just said is wildly theoretical and large strategy thing, but how do you actually, you listening or watching this, how do you actually do this? Open up ChatGPT, take the free account, and ask it the burning question. Like the thing that you don't know. Take a picture of what's in your fridge and say, what could I eat today that won't spike my blood sugar? Or say, I've had this problem with this member of staff. What are 3 ways I could address this? Or say, I want to grow my company by 20% in the next 6 months. What do you need to know from me in order to help me work out what I should do next? And if you've got absolutely nothing, then open up ChatGPT and say, I've been told by this super smart British guy to spend 20 minutes a day using AI, but I've got no idea what I'm doing with it. So what could I do for the next 20 minutes to help me understand how cool and powerful you are? We can use the AI to coach you in the absence of somebody like me. So if you literally are stuck completely, still do the 20 minutes a day. Just sit in front of ChatGPT and dedicate yourself and say, every day I'm going to do 20 minutes. And I promise you, it will take no longer than 10 days before you have a moment where you're almost backing away from your keyboard in disbelief. It will be no more than 10 days where you're going, whoa, I can't believe it just did that. And so that would be my advice of how you're going to build it. Yeah. The aha moment, the Excalibur moment where you're like, this is
Peter, how much more of your time do we have? Because I know you're tight on schedule today.
7 minutes.
Okay. So 7 minutes is plenty of time. So what I want to bring up to the audience is I'm part of the monthly membership that you have to be able to teach business owners, entrepreneurs, individuals, husbands, mothers, whoever you are, right? You don't have to be a business owner, to teach you the right ways to utilize ChatGPT and AI resources. And one of the things that you point out is that you have to create a conversation that's a two-way conversation with ChatGPT, right? You say hello, you say thank you. Can you go into the importance of why that is and other things that you talk about in your class?
Yeah, so we recommend everyone, and this sounds a bit woo, we recommend everybody name their AI because there are certain things that humans do. You know, we are wildly unpredictable as individuals, but we are wildly predictable as a cohort. And one of the things that's predictable is if you refer to artificial intelligence as a tool, you won't get good results. The reason being, if you think what a tool is, so say, for example, this mug is a tool. If I hold it like this and I do this, then the liquid will hopefully go in my mouth.
It'll go on your shirt if you do it just like that.
But if I do this with it and I put it on my head or I turn it upside down, it won't work. That's a stupid way of explaining that a tool has a process and a procedure and a right way of using it and a wrong way of using it, and it repeatedly does the thing you expect it to do if you do the thing you're supposed to do. Everything in the world, from a golf club to a mug to a desk to a chair, if you sit in a chair in a certain way, it will support you in that way. Okay? Artificial intelligence is not a tool. It is an intelligence. And so if I say to you, go and say this to Claude or ChatGPT or any of the systems, I cannot guarantee the output you will get, which means it is not a tool, it's an intelligence. So if you start by doing something stupid like naming it, mine's called Jet. If you name it, what you, instead of saying the next word that people say when it's a tool is, it's not working, gets replaced with, in your brain, because it now has an identity, gets replaced with he or she didn't do what I was expecting. What did I say wrong? Which is a much more evolved way of thinking about this. It's one of the reasons, fun fact, that women accelerate quicker in AI than men do. Women are quicker to understand that there is an empathetic conversation happening, whereas men are trying to bash it like it's a hammer and not getting the outcomes they want, which I think is super cool. So the first thing is start identifying this with an intelligence and start having a conversation. And the reason, by the way, the hellos and the thank yous and the pleases become so important is because it's a mimicking machine. Right? Remember we said that creativity and context? Well, how you talk to it is part of the context. So if you want it to be polite and respectful and empathetic back to you, and you want strategies to come out of it that are respectful and empathetic, if you start by going, F you, do this, da 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 da, the thing you get out the other side will resemble the energy that you've put in. So I really see it as parenting. It's the best way I've got to explain it, because parenting is one of the few places in the world where I want my kids to beat me on every metric.
Makes sense.
I want them to be happier than me, healthier than me, wealthier than me, more aligned than me, more emotionally resolute than me, better traveled than me. I want them to beat me on every single metric. I don't want you, Marta, to beat me on every metric. I want there to be at least one thing that I'm better at you at. I've got to be honest. And I think you're the same. Like, of course I want my friends to succeed, but I don't want them to succeed on everything better than me. Then who am I? Like, they would leave me and da da da.
What's your identity at that point in time?
Yeah. And I'm just being, I think we're human beings leading a spiritual existence, but I also think we're spiritual beings suffering through a human existence.
Got it.
And our human selves want to be able to look in a mirror and go, yeah, I did this and I'm cool. So with our kids, it's very different. But our kids also, we again all know this as the parents that listen to this. Parenting is actually kind of simple, but it's relentless. We know that if we don't give them sugar and we put them to bed on time and we wake them up on time, and when they say the snarly thing to their brother or sister, if we stop them on the time and say, was that what you meant? We know that we breed good humans, and we know that their behaviors will carry on. The problem is that every so often, almost all of us go, fine, have the candy. Like, I don't have the capacity to parent right now. And then for 3 days, we're like, I can't believe I did that. Like, I can't get them to sleep on time now. And now they did this. And now they just had this argument in their playground at recess with their friend. And it's all because I just didn't hold the line for that one moment that was easy. And I say that because it's very similar when you're working with AI. If you hold yourself to that standard of, I'm going to treat you with respect, even though you're not real, I'm going to step into the suspension of disbelief that you are, then it repays itself time after time after time. When you start dictating to it like it's a servant being, you're going to start seeing worse and worse results. So I hope that helps.
Interesting. Peter, I love stepping into your mind and into your world. You are absolutely brilliant. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and our viewers. before we part, do you want to share any way people can contact you, or maybe a little bit about your subscription to learn more about AI?
Yeah, if they go to, thank you. If they go to ageoftheartist.com, so that's ageoftheartist.com, and I'll give you a link so we can put it in some show notes and stuff. We run challenges every month. We have different ways people can engage with us. As I said, we do a weekly mastermind, of literally just finding the latest and greatest thing every week that people can do. And we'd love to see you there.
Awesome. I love it. Peter, thank you so much. I know this is going to be a treat for everyone. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. May this discussion serve as a gentle reminder that living a fulfilling and purposeful life is possible. Take charge of your life right now by cultivating relationships, drawing inspiration, nurturing love, and expanding income streams. Visit livelifewealthier.com for additional conversations that will provide you with life-altering aha moments. That's all I have for now. Until the next time, take care.